like for each of you to imagine that you're scheduled to make an important time presentation in school. In the days leading up to your presentation, you studied your subject well. You've ensured that you're well rested and you feel adequately prepared for the process. On the day of your presentation, you arrive at your classroom early, briefly review your notes, and begin the process with confidence. Now I'd like for you to imagine that suddenly the rules of the game have changed. Your instructor notifies you that you're to speak about a subject that is completely different from the one that you are prepared for. You have no time to think about this, and you have no time to gather other materials for your presentation. You are required to successfully alter your plan using only materials at your immediate disposal. And your allotted time is rapidly expiring. Now imagine that the success of this presentation is of life or death importance. How would you react? What would be going through your mind at this point? Houston, we have a problem. While finding himself in a similar situation, Apollo 13 astronaut Jim Lovell uttered these famous words on April 13th of 1970. And as I shall explain to you today, Lovell, his crew members, and the employees of Mission Control were able to demonstrate incredible resolve, character, and leadership while under intense pressure. Let's examine the events of that fateful day. Apollo 13 was originally designed to be the third lunar landing mission. 56 hours into the flight, everything changed and the mission had to be aborted. According to the Lunar and Planetary Internet website, an oxygen tank aboard the service module exploded, rendering this module non-functional. This meant that the module was unable to provide the crew with electricity, water, and most importantly, oxygen during the mission. In addition, the service module was also designed to provide propulsion necessary to maneuver the spacecraft, meaning that unless the crew could devise a plan quickly, they would have no way to steer the aircraft and return to Earth. In a matter of moments, the crew had gone from executing routine flight procedures to struggling for survival. Now that you know what the obstacles that were faced, let's examine the reactions of both the crew on the ground and on the spacecraft. Although the service module was non-functional, it was retained until just before re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. The crew decided to do this in order to avoid what they perceived as the potential for damage to the heat shield on the bottom of the command module. They were worried that this damage would result from prolonged exposure to the extreme cold temperatures of space. And had this shield been damaged, the crew would have burned up during re-entry. The command module, which served as the crew compartment and control center, was also designed for re-entry. Unfortunately, the consumables aboard this module were sufficient only for the re-entry process because the service module's consumables were designed to maintain the crew during the rest of the flight. After some quick calculations, the crew decided to power down the command module in order to conserve these consumables for the re-entry process. And this left the lunar module as the only safe haven for the astronauts to occupy. The module was originally designed to be an operating base and living quarters for the crew while they were on the lunar surface. However, its consumables would enable the astronauts to power down the command module and therefore save those consumables for the re-entry process. Incredibly, the astronauts would also use the lunar module's descent engine to provide propulsion necessary to maneuver the module into orbit around the moon and therefore slingshot it back towards Earth. In addition to the calm and rational decisions being made by the flight crew, the employees of Mission Control also displayed ingenuity, resolve, and great leadership traits during this crisis. Due to malfunctions in the air quality system, unacceptable levels of carbon dioxide were accumulating in the cabin. Under intense pressure that would make others fold, engineers on the ground were able to design a new type of filter system using only materials that happened to be laying around on the lunar module. And by doing this, they were able to avoid yet another life-threatening situation to the crew. During the same time, crew members on the ground were also working feverishly in a flight simulator to develop a power-up sequence for the command module during the re-entry process. They were concerned that there was a limited enough power supply that they could actually run out of power and be unable to perform the procedures necessary to successfully return. Mission Control Specialist Gene Krantz also displayed powerful leadership qualities by establishing a sense of urgency with his group, while at the same time repeatedly expressing confidence that all would be well. While engineers were telling him that they could not successfully design the CO2 system that they were eventually able to design, Krantz sternly uttered the famous quote, "Failure is not an option." A little while after that, a NASA director was overheard by mission control employees to say that this was probably going to be NASA's greatest disaster in history. Krantz quickly followed that comment up by saying that he personally believed it was about to be their finest hour. As we have learned today, life can sometimes provide us with obstacles that seem insurmountable. How we react to those obstacles goes a long way towards determining whether they are in fact insurmountable. The people involved in Apollo 13 did not fold in the face of pressure. Instead, they drew upon their knowledge and experience and maintained their composure while demonstrating great traits in resolve, character, and leadership that speak well of employees' ability to triumph. Thank you.